All right, welcome to American Hammers TV, the OG debate. My mother asked me if OG stands for Old Guard, and I said, kind of, sort of. It's kind of hard to explain. My mom's 75, so I don't know if she really understands what original gangsta means. She must wonder what I'm up to here in the attic twice a week. But anyway, this is the OG debate. We've got John, who lives in Philly, but is obviously very English. We've got Ray, who lives in Liverpool, but is definitely not a Liverpool supporter. Thank God for him.
Can you tell?
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, we've got me in snowy Chelmsford, Mass. With my, look at this, American Hammers TV scarf.
Nice.
It's the holiday season. No matter which holiday you celebrate, or even if you don't celebrate at all, just want to buy a scarf. Check out our website, AmericanHammersTV.us. We've got these great scarves. They're fantastic. Great colors, beautiful color and blue. Really nice. Really nice. So I never wear mine because it's too nice to wear. I just show it to people. You know what I mean? But I have it, and I like showing it off. So, also check out ahtv.threadless.com. Everybody should know by now, hopefully. Hey, Tebow, how you doing? Good to see Tebow in there tonight. ahtv.threadless.com. You can buy pretty much anything you want with an AHTV logo or a logo from any of the supporters groups in the U.S., some around the world as well. You can get logos from our shows. You can get an OG debate. You can get an OG debate framed print to hang in your home if you really want that. You can get a shower curtain with our logo on. It's incredible the amount of stuff you can get. The internet has truly created a bizarre sort of marketplace of things that we can sell. So anyway, go out and check that out and buy something for yourself or your friends. Just buy something. It helps us. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. When we get to 1,000 subscribers, we start making a little money, and we're not going to keep it, all right? We're going to spend it on making the show better, making the network better. We're going to, try to have get some of our technical issues worked out. We're going to get stuff away. So please tell your friends about our channel and whether they support West Ham or not.
Does that mean me and John start getting paid?
Do I?
Yeah. Does me and John start getting paid?
I get paid by the like, Ray.
I was going to say, John has a deal under the table that we don't talk about. So, yeah. John gets paid in admiration and compliments after the show. After the show, I'm going to spend 20 minutes saying nice things to him, and that's how he gets paid. That's how we do it. But anyway, yeah. So if you haven't subscribed, please do it. If you know anybody who would like to, please let those people know. I have been spamming people at work about subscribing to the channel, and I think it's working a little bit. They don't have to watch. I don't really care if they watch. I just want to subscribe. That's all. So anyway, so tonight, a little bit different OG debate format. We don't have a match this weekend. And I think we've covered Southampton, pretty effectively. So we're going to start with some topical stuff, and then we're going to get into the end of the decade. It doesn't feel like the end of a decade to me. I'm old enough to remember the end of the 70s, just barely, the end of the 80s and 90s very well. But these last 2 decades have been very nondescript to me. Like, it means nothing to me to say 2000s or 2010s. I just haven't felt like anything. So anyway, it is nevertheless the end of a decade, which I suppose is something we should mark. We can talk about some of our favorite players, some of our favorite moments, and all the trophies that we've won in the 2010s. But let's start with something John mentioned before we started, right before we went live. And that's Jack Sullivan, who evidently is just running the club now. I don't know. We keep reading that Husilios will be on his way out if Pellegrini ever leaves. And so basically Jack Sullivan's just like doing transfers, scouting players, just, he's just doing it. Yeah, that's true. That was an amazing night. It was 1 week ago tonight. We talked to Ian Bishop, and before we get started, please go back and watch that if you haven't. All right, that's a fantastic episode. A Friday Night Lights episode of Wednesday night of last week. So we can go tonight. That was December 11th. Please watch it. It's fantastic. Anyway, John does want me to come in first on this. So Ray, let's go to you first. What's your take on Jack Sullivan? Just running West Ham United at this point.
So I am actually in two minds about it. I don't think it's a massive issue because I don't think he's actually running it. I think he's probably just there learning the ropes, so he can actually, hi Neil, just so he can. One day he's apparently going to be taking over the team. It's good learning for him for the women's team, how to talk to different people in different countries. How to talk to different agents and all that kind of jazz. And if we remember the emails that his dad used to send out to all the agents saying, "Oh, if you don't give us this player, we'll go get another player," was absolutely ridiculous. So he does need some teaching. Hopefully he's learning from Julio's and he's not dictating anything. He's just there and sitting, watching the BBC show with him doing the ladies, because I've watched quite a few of them, if not all of them now. And you can see that he's learning different things. He's not like the boss who goes there and like just dictates orders. He sits there with his general managers and he's picking up all the little bits and pieces, talking to the manager. So that's what I feel it probably is more like than anything else. I can't see him. If my dad had an owner of West Ham, I'd give my 2 pence in.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course. And Tim is right. Listen, if you read it in the British media, it's absolutely not true and will never come true. So, take everything you read with a grain of salt. But John, now that is a relatively positive take there. So, John, you said you were going to go against the grain, but I don't know if you maybe expected that grain out of Ray. So, you're still going to go against the grain, or do you have
I thought I was going to go against grain. I thought, at least in my Twitter universe, everybody's up in arms over all this, which I think is a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
What Ray said, if you are the son of an owner of the football club and you're the heir apparent, absolutely, you should be in those meetings. He should be watching what's going on behind the scenes. He should be in any big business that the club is doing. He should be with Husilos. He should be watching how transfers are done. I've seen people say, well, he should go and get that experience elsewhere. Where else are you going to get big Premier League signing experience outside of a Premier League club? And I'll tell you what, none of our rivals are taking him. So he should be in the room. That doesn't mean that he's there, actively negotiating with people. He hasn't, he doesn't have the experience for that yet, but he should be learning from those that have that experience and that are around him. Now, if you're a West Ham fan, I am more worried about the fact that Jack Sullivan is taking this active role, because it means maybe they are around for the long haul and they're not going to sell up in 2 years if they're actively showing him the ropes and how this is going on. I'm more worried about that than I am about him in any kind of transfer negotiations. And just for the rest of them that are out there going off about him, picking out some players and sending those on to the scouting team. There's plenty of you on Twitter doing that as well. How many posts is David Gold tagged in of people that have found somebody on FIFA and sending a name over to him? So behave yourselves. If anybody's entitled to do it, it's probably the owner's son.
David Gold gets a lot of stick on Twitter, and the only reason that bothers me a little bit is because I think of all the three, the unholy trinity that own the club, he's the only one I actually kind of like. I sort of don't mind him in a way. And he gets a lot of angry, I think because he's actually active on Twitter, he gets a lot of anger on Twitter, and it's a little misplaced, but
it's active when we win.
Well, yeah, I think, well, that's true. When we don't win, that's true. He's active when we win, or when he's bragging about now let me see, what did he say? The largest freestanding roof structure in Europe or something like that? Wasn't that what he said about the Olympic Stadium has the largest? I don't even know what that means. But anyway, certainly makes up for leaving the ball in, obviously. But I think the point you bring up, the only thing that concerns me about Jack Sullivan, because honestly, I don't think he's stupid. I don't. I think when he was 16 and he was tweeting rumors and he was chirping at other clubs, I think that was unnecessary. But he's older now. He's a little smarter. He's grown up. He's really done a pretty good job with the women's team insofar as, they're relatively successful for being in their second year, I think, in the Premier League. They made an FA Cup final last season. They've played at the Olympic Stadium. They've had some high-profile, what am I trying to say? Exposure with the TV show over there, and with the big matches that have drawn, large crowds for women's football. So I think he's really done a pretty decent job with them. And as you said, we know that the British media have a tendency to exaggerate and throw fuel on a very small fire And so I think you're right. I think he's probably sitting in the room with Jusilios. I think he's probably getting some training. All that's fine with me. I don't think he's really running the club the way the rumors have suggested. But the biggest issue I have, John, is what you said. Maybe they're in it for the long haul. I don't like that.
Yeah, that's worrying.
That's a problem for me. And I know Tim has talked to a couple of kind of insiders and semi-insiders. Some of them have been here on the show, and I think some of them have talked to him privately. And they've kind of mentioned that, these owners are in it for the long haul. They do want to pass this off to their kids. And I really hope that's not the case, because I think for the club to be competitive, to compete for Europe consistently, to compete for anything close to Champions League, we're going to have a big money, genuine billionaire owner, which will change the culture and everything else, but it also makes contenders. So, yeah, I do worry a little bit about that. I the other day when I was watching the Southampton match, I think it was Arlo White said the board have been in charge of West Ham now for 10 years. And if we end up in a relegation battle this season, and we're kind of in one right now, it'll be 5 relegation battles in 10 years, one of which we lost. If you remember, we went down, obviously, we had to come back up. It's just a really bad record, Yeah. So, I mean, that's the biggest issue I have. But as you said, other than that, I mean, yeah, if my dad ran a football club, sure. Yeah, I'd rather he learn about it now than take over, like Al Davis's son took over the Oakland / Los Angeles / Las Vegas Raiders and is just has run it into the ground because he doesn't know what he's doing. I'd rather he learn about it now than just get it, when Sullivan passes it on and not know what he's doing. So.
Yeah, I think some of it too. Some of it's our fan base as well. I mean, we are a very knee-jerky fan base. Something happens, we're immediately all over it. Hearing the news that Jack Sullivan's involved in anything, everybody suddenly says he's running the club. Hearing that we lose another game, everybody's out naming the next manager who possibly could replace anybody. Ancelotti's on there. Why aren't we all over him? Hearing that, what was his name, Maceras or whatever, the other coach that was behind Pellegrini, somehow masterminded the win at Chelsea. I don't know how he masterminded Chelsea not showing up for that game, but somehow he was responsible
he picked
for that win.
11, apparently, yeah.
Whatever the talking point of the day is, our fan base is all over it, and we're just swinging, completely bipolar from one extreme to the other.
Yeah,
on an almost daily basis.
Yeah, and don't a lot of fans from just around the globe, don't they always moan that teams nowadays change their manager all the time too soon, and we don't give the manager enough time to develop the team and grow the team? I again, hands up, I did say I wanted Pellegrini out after the Burnley game.
Yeah,
and
I still want him out.
Yeah, I'd probably still want him out. I'd probably want someone else in. But then our manager, the owners say, oh, well, they're being too greedy. They're just thinking about the money they can save, what it's going to cost them to transfer out. Maybe it is a case that Sullivan does really like Pellegrini and want to give him a chance, or does everything he can to try and give him a chance, because he wanted him in the first place. He doesn't want him to be there to be unsuccessful. Yeah. He wants to succeed. But the other question I've got for you guys is, do you think Jack Sullivan can turn the fans around about his family and about his family legacy at West Ham?
Who's going first?
Go ahead.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Do you reckon it's too tarnished?
I mean, it's certainly tarnished. Is he? What is he? He's the Prince Harry and Prince William to the Prince Charles. That's kind of what we're asking for, right? Is the heir apparent seems like a little bit nicer of a fella, and he very well may be. I mean, he's young, he's a kid, he doesn't know anything yet. He needs to get his feet wet.
Yeah, he's not going to
will care if he puts money into it. If somehow he overtakes that team, does he put money in? That's what it's going to come down to for West Ham fans. Is he putting money in? Is he doing it in the right areas? And are we not a laughing stock? Is he not out in the press every 2 days? If he came in tomorrow and got rid of Karen Brady, every single one of our fan base would be on side immediately.
Yeah,
that's a great point. To me, Ray, my answer to your question would be no, only because I think it's going to take a wealthier, more free spending owner to deliver on the promise that the board made when we left the Berlin, which was next level. Which I think to most of us that meant consistently competing for European football. I don't think this ownership can deliver that financially or otherwise. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think that he can. I think the cuts I don't think he can change the perception of the family. However, as John said, sacking Karen Brady would not hurt. I mean, basically going in and saying, we're doing things a little differently around here. We're getting rid of this, the old hag, and it's a younger generation. And I mean, it'd be a start, but I don't feel as though I don't.
Well, she wants to go into politics, doesn't she? So by the time Jack comes around, she'll probably fuck off and be the mayor of London, or try and be the mayor of London or something. So it might be in both interests.
Fine, let her go. Oh man, let her go.
I'm not pro ball by any means, but what I would say is, you're right there, Lee. We need a proper billionaire to come in and take over the club, because what they have is $1 billion. Now, $1 billion is 5 Neymars. Right. I mean, like in this day and age, and in the world that we live in, you're broke off of 5. You can't even do a starting 11 of Neymars.
No.
So not that we expect to go out there and spend that much. But the reality is, you need somebody with 10 billion in their back pocket, not 1. I mean, that's not going to get us anywhere these days.
Yeah, and I
60 million on the training ground, let alone any more on the players.
I question the 1 even. I mean, I don't know. I don't know his net worth, but to call Sullivan a billionaire, I mean, it's a little. To me, it's misleading, because, as you said, Jeff Bezos is a billionaire. He's got $100 billion. Bill Gates is $100 billion. These oil tycoons who have bought Citi and Piaget and Abramovich. I mean, these guys are guys with double-digit billions. The Sullivan's not in that league. I mean, I'd take his money, right?
His money's tied up in toys as well. He may not be able to move it around.
Yeah, well, yeah. At least Sullivan came about his money honestly, though, right? It's honest. He's a good, honest, wholesome pornographer who, came about it the right way. But for entertainment. But yeah, I don't. It's a good question, Ray, but it's hard for me to imagine that. The other, what? I want to keep on this topic just a little bit though, because you guys realize, of course, that if and when the billionaire does step up, the real billionaire steps up, it's going to change the culture of the club, right? I mean, that it's going to be, you're going to have bandwagon fans, as we call it here in the U.S. I don't know, glory hunters, I guess is the expression I'm trying to come up with. Yeah, it's going to be, if we ever really did become a consistent top 6 club, I mean, would it even still be West Ham to you? We'd be winning. That'd be better than what we're doing now. But all the stuff that goes with it, I mean, would it be worth it?
Do you want me to go first?
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we're pretty much there already, aren't we? Since we moved to Olympic Stadium. And is it glory hunters, or is it just bringing in a new fan base, like this show, trying to make sure that we're getting more Americans as supporters?
Yeah.
Buy more products.
I don't know. I mean, I feel as though the American supporters we have now are clearly not glory hunters.
Right? Tim's definitely a glory hunter.
Or they're really bad at it. We're really bad at it. It's like, I feel as though with one of the reasons I started supporting West Ham years ago was because the club had never won the league. That, oddly enough, had a strong appeal to me, because you get in on the ground floor of something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And you get in with, that the fans are passionate and that they're genuine, because they don't have all these trophies to brag about and hang on to. And I feel as though, as much as we'd all love to win a lot of trophies, which again would take a change in ownership, I mean, would we want to be another Chelsea or another Manchester City with all the culture that goes around it, not just the trophies, but all the surrounding stuff? What do you think, John? Would you care?
Couple things. So we've already got rival supporters singing to us, "You're not West Ham anymore." So yeah. We've left our home. We're in a bowl. We've been rebranded professionally, right? We had a marketing team with selling us a new badge, new home, new whatever else. So there's that aspect of it. So what does West Ham mean after that? And I think West Ham means us, the supporters, and what we bring to the table, and kind of those traditions. So if we were to get new owners in, that would at least honor those traditions and keep up with kind of the ethos of the club going back more than 100 years, then yeah, I'm all about it. That's fine. Second point, you look at Man City supporters, they were shit, just as bad as we were for all those years.
They were worse, arguably.
I don't see a whole lot of them complaining. Maybe they're complaining about some of the day trippers. Maybe they're complaining about, too much success. Maybe they're complaining Guardiola's only there for 3 years and not 4 or 5.
Right.
You know what I mean? So listen, if we carry on the way we are, right, next level, these owners came in, so we're going to the next level. It's already been, how long with them? 10 years? Go back 10 years, you were saying 5 relegation scraps. West Ham will never win a thing in my lifetime if we carry on this way. I just want to see one. I want to see one. So don't even give me the 100, but I don't even want Jeff Bezos. Don't want him. Don't care. Give me the bloody, I don't know, Elon Musk instead, who's like the half a billionaire. He's got 10 billion in the bank instead of 100 billion. And we all have to sit around and listen to all the weird shit that he says. But just for one FA Cup, that would be perfect. That's all I want. And then they can piss off again. And we can
FA Cup all day long. That's what I would love. Just any cup, really. Just a cup run. Just, even getting into the European Cup and, winning that. Because isn't that the top that we've ever won? It's just the European Cup. It's the
Cup Winners'
World Cup.
Yeah, well,
the World Cup. Yeah, don't forget the World Cup.
That Cup Winners' Cup, which doesn't exist anymore, which is a shame because I was
really.
Yeah, and if I ran global football or European football, I would I would get rid of the group stages and I'd take all the competitions back to home and away every stage. I get rid of all this group stages and round robins and all that. I get rid of that. Go back to the way it used to be. But anyway, that's just me.
Let me make one more point, Lee, and let me go against everything I just said. Because at the same time, West Ham supporters, we're a special breed. In fact, I think I don't know if it's masochism, we enjoy losing to a certain degree, or we enjoy at least the victory when chance of defeat is higher. I think that's what draws kind of our people in. That's what keeps us there. That season with Payet, where we were coming from behind, we were winning all over the place.
Yeah.
Answer me truthfully. I got to a point where I got a little bit bored of winning. That sounds weird, but I'll claim it. I'm Uber West Ham. I'm so used to losing that the thought of just going into a game confident just seemed wrong. And I don't know what it was, but did you guys feel any of that during that season?
I mean, I have felt that before. Maybe a little less with West Ham, but I think the weirdest season for me was the season of the championship when we went into every match, pretty much every match, basically favored to win. And I realized it was a lower level, but that felt really strange. It felt really weird to expect to win every week. It didn't feel right. I didn't like it, but I like the fact that we were competing for something. Did I get bored of winning in the Payet season? I felt as though it was a totally unfamiliar feeling and it wasn't entirely comfortable. But yeah, I don't know if I got bored of it, but it certainly was different. And I'll tell you what I didn't have that season was the thrill that I just got last weekend when we beat Southampton. That was a relegation 6-pointer. They're a struggling club. They always struggle. And normally a club with our players, with our manager, our stadium, everything else, we should just win that match and just move on and not worry about it, but that felt so great to beat Southampton that to me, that's all in a lot of ways. To me, that's the essence of being West Ham is you have a match in December against Southampton. That's just like, it just feels as though you've won the Champions League or something, And I didn't get those feelings in the Payet season. I didn't get those feelings because we just steamrolled so many opponents and it was like, oh, okay, we'll win this match and move on. And that's not very West Ham to me. That's a weird feeling.
Yeah, I knew what was coming around the corner. So being a West Ham supporter for so many years, I knew this was not going to last. So enjoy it while it was going on. And again, like the Payet season when it was typical West Ham, chances of getting the Champions League, and we just like slowly drifted away.
Yep.
And we didn't really play well until the last game of the season. And even then, we nearly cocked it up.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's typical West Ham. We think we're going to balls this up. Our last game ever at the stadium, and we're going to lose to Man United, and then somehow miracles happen. And they happen at West Ham every now and again. It's just crazy. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, John, you're a college football guy. You got your Penn State hat on, and everybody's going to drink a lot tonight because we already talked about PSG once. So here comes another one because you guys know I went to TCU, went to Texas Christian. Obviously, so have your drinks. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but TCU was one of the worst programs in college football for about 35 years, and then we turned it around about 20 years ago, and got so good for a while that we'd win 10 or 11 games a year. Like almost, we had one stretch where we lost like 4 games in like 5 years, And that was weird because when I was in college and when I was a kid and watched the team, a winning season was very rare and very exciting. And all of a sudden it's like now the expectation is, we're going to win 10, we're going to win 11, we're going to win 12. It just didn't feel right, But it was better than losing. So it's kind of similar to the way I felt in the Payet season or in the championship season when I actually went into games thinking, yeah, we should win. We should win. We expect to win. It's not very West Ham to expect to win. But by the same token, I could get used to it if I had to.
Yeah.
So, Gave my buddy in Texas time. Yeah, Trev was a great quarterback. He has unfortunately run into some personal issues. We'll talk about some other time. But he was a great quarterback. Anyway, let's talk about the last 10 years since we've had the Gold Brady Sullivan decade here. We had some questions come to us on Instagram about what we should talk about tonight. We spent the first half an hour talking about other stuff, but let's just do a simple look at the past decade. Let's start with your favorite player of the past decade. Not necessarily the best, but just the one you like the best. Your favorite West Ham player of the last, 2010 through 2020. Who do you have?
Who's that
in the chat room, tell us too. You guys tell us too.
Well,
you go first, John.
I think for me, obviously it's the ever-present Mark Noble. He's epitomized who the club is. He's epitomized who the type of supporters are. He's a great ambassador on and off the pitch for West Ham, and he's been there through God knows countless managers at this point, and he keeps getting selected. So keeps showing his quality through and through. That's a great suggestion there from John Callender as well in the chat room. Ginge, big personality, fan favorite. Yeah, I mean, we've had so many journeymen that anybody that's been there more than 4 or 5 seasons. Reedy, he was there. Christ, I'm getting my decades mixed up. Robert Green, did he start the last 10 years?
Robert Green was. I'd have to think about that. I don't know. Actually, I'm not so sure now. He might have. Man, he goes back a long way though.
Yeah, but there's players like that, But Nobes for me, I mean, he's the obvious one, but Mr. West Ham.
I don't know if Wally is serious here.
Piss off, Wally.
I don't think there's any way he beats this. What do you think?
He scored some good goals, though. You got to give him credit.
He did score some good goals. Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was actually Ginger Pele. Not just because of what he did on the pitch. I was in London looking at another site with my boss and a couple of other managers for Cody Ugly. And we was in Leicester Square, and we went around to one of the back alley restaurants, pubs, to have a look at what it was like. And no word of lie, Ginger Pele come walking through the door. This was just after he was announced that he was leaving West Ham. He weren't going to renew his contract and all that. and literally, we chatted for about 10 minutes. He literally just walked in with his friends. They all went and got a table to get food. And he literally just stood there. We had a chat, talking about West Ham, talking about a few things that he probably doesn't want mentioning on here. But he was actually a really genuine, nice person. You know, he knew I was a West Ham fan, and we were just having a good old chat. And that, for me, just said a lot more about the man than anyone else. So, you know, give him a testimonial.
Yeah. No, I agree.
He deserves it.
I think he's a great candidate. You know, everybody who watches our show, who's ever seen me on the show, knows how much I love Scott Parker. But he really wasn't with us for that long in this decade, and I know what happened. So you don't have to tell me. But I didn't really stay with us for that long. So I think for me, it's Carlton Cole.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, if he hadn't gotten injured, it probably would have been Jack Collison. Because I've met him personally. That doesn't hurt. We've had him on the show. He's a fantastic guy. I think he was a great young player. His career got cut short really early. So Collison will always have, you know, a special place in my West Ham memories. But overall, I just love Carlton Cole. So West Ham to me in that he was not always the best player, but he always worked hard. He always tried hard. And, you know, he went down with us. He came back up with us. I know a lot of people say that, you know, there were contractual reasons why he went down. I don't really care. All I know is that when we got relegated, he stuck with us. He played with us. He set up that goal for Vaz Tê in the playoff final. He made that run, and then he came back, and, you know, he always ran. He always worked hard. He always played hard. I saw him score live and in person. That didn't hurt. And, you know, he's still with the club, and he's still a supporter of the club. He's still an advocate for the club. He's funny. He has a sense of self-awareness. He has a sense of irony. He understands who he is in West Ham's history. He doesn't think he's a greater player than he actually was. He knows he's a cult hero, and he acts like it. I just love Carlton Cole. I think I'll always love Carlton Cole. That's my guy.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. I totally agree with that.
So let's talk about moments that. Well, actually, you know what? Let's open it up to the real question. Excluding Roberto, who doesn't count because it's too obvious an answer. Your least favorite West Ham player in the last 10 years. And let's make it somebody who played like more than 2 games. You know what I mean? Like a semi-regular player you just hated for whatever reason.
Who did? I'm actually just going through the history. I'm just looking now.
Yeah,
what
that's
about
it.
Spectre?
No, come on.
He's a national icon.
He's one of us. He's one of us. He was. Hey, what about those 2 goals against Manchester United in that League Cup game?
Yeah, you can't.
I think I can just look at the chat room and start pulling some names out of there. Great. You got John Carew, Gokhan Sore.
Right. Let me throw
Maiga.
It can be, if you want it to be a Payet or an Arnautovic, or, you know, that you can throw those guys in there too, because of the way things ended. I mean, I
don't hate them. That's controversial. I don't hate them. It's football. Everybody's trying to get paid, right? I mean, that's just kind of the business of it, unfortunately. I don't
hate Payet because I think he genuinely left to save his family. I really believe that story. I do. And if he did that, then I respect that. I don't like the way he did it, but the fact that he did it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have a most hated player. We've been through so many strikers. You know, it's hard to hate any one of them more than any of the others. Maybe I don't, and my decades just kind of roll together at this point, so I couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, mine too.
Who's one to the next? But Benny McCarthy was out this last decade, if not, it was a decade before. Where, you know, he refused to train properly to shed the weight to try and be a first team player after we just gone out and got him. Yeah, I don't know. There's no one individual. To be fair, there's a lot of disappointments. There's a hell of a lot of disappointments.
Yeah, harsh is probably a bad word. Disappointing is probably no. When he was playing for us, he didn't do really anything, and then as soon as he come and played against us,
you cut off.
He was shocking.
Who were you talking about?
Yeah. Ayew?
Andre Ayew, shocking.
Oh yeah,
that's a good shout. Yeah.
Well, no, that was no.
The thing that annoyed. I was going to say, the thing that annoyed me is when he actually played against us for Swansea. And he played, I was like, where the hell was this guy?
That was like a week later or 2 weeks later, yeah.
Yeah, It weren't even like a month or a year later. It was literally a week. I feel sorry for Saha. I think he was pretty hard done by, to be fair, with that loan deal. Saying if you don't play in the first 15 or score goals, and we're not going to play you anymore, it probably put a lot more pressure on him. You know, I mean, how long did it take Henry to blend into Premiership? It took him like 6 months.
I think it did. Yeah. Everybody thought he was washed up. Remember Henry? He was supposed to be like. I mean, he was, he had flamed out, everybody thought. And then he only turned into maybe the greatest Premier League striker ever, or certainly one of the top 5,
He's not better than Cole.
Do what?
He's not better than Cole and Cole.
No, of course not. Well, nobody is. This is my Carlton Cole shirt, by the way.
He's not even better than Di Michele at that point, and he barely did anything.
I think Pablo Barrera was a huge disappointment to me. Young Mexican guy we signed, and I want to say that was in this decade. I think it was. Di Michele, Diego Tristan. My dad used to use this nose spray called Dristan with a D, right? And it was like you used it to clear up your nose. He was like, I think he was addicted to it. He used it all the time. Every time I heard the name Diego Tristan, I thought of that nose spray that he used to spray. But anyway, Tristan, Freddie Piquion, who came from support Saint Etienne, and he turned out to be total garbage. There was Mito. There was.
Do you guys remember? And I think I'm going back another decade. Do you remember when we got Davor Suker, who used to be like shit hot?
Yes.
And then just nothing when he came to us.
Yes, I do think that was in the last. It was a decade previous, but yes, absolutely, yeah. And there's another I definitely don't hate him. Don't hate him. But big disappointment, Freddie Sears. Sorry.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Well, he's like the Freddie Adu of West Ham. He's, he was like this. He scored the wonder goal, and he was a little too small. He just didn't.
It's a lot of hype.
Yeah, he just didn't quite physically have the skills. Didn't hate him. Would never say that, but just didn't have it. But there were some players, like, people hated Faubert when he was here. I didn't think he was all that bad.
What was his nickname, Lee?
Huh?
What was his nickname?
I don't remember.
He was the TGV.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah. Then he went to wasn't he the one who went to Real on loan?
Yeah.
And fell asleep on the touchline. It's that for that reason alone, he's one of my favorite West Ham players of all time. He goes to Real on loan and falls asleep on the touchline. Yeah, I don't know. Hate is maybe a bad word, but yeah, there's a lot of disappointments. A lot, especially up front. All right, so how about let's go with your favorite moment, and there's a lot if you think about it. I'm just going to refresh a little bit here because you have the playoff final, right? You have the last game at the Boleyn. You have the first win at Spurs, a new White Hart Lane. I don't know. There's a bunch of other. There's Adrian dropping the gloves in the FA Cup match against Everton and hitting the penalty to win the match. There's probably 6 or 8 that I could think of. But can you narrow it down to 1 or 2? Your favorite moment of the last decade?
Who's going? You want me to go?
It doesn't matter. Anybody?
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly a few, and I'll mention 2, and then I'm going to go off beat a little bit. So I think anybody that doesn't mention the final game of the Boleyn, you're out of your mind. Just the way it happened, the way it occurred, the final result, who we played, everything about it. Historic, right?
Before the game, after the game.
So Peggy. Yeah, well, unfortunately, I didn't get to do much of that. I had to watch it on a stream, but oh God, I wish I was there for that. To piggyback on Ray a little bit and his love of Andy Carroll, that overhead kick is another kind of defining moment, I'd say. It was a big deal. And then the one, if I look back on the last 10 years, and maybe if I rephrase it as not my favorite moment, but probably the one that surprised me the most, and there's going to be people that hate his name because we've already heard it in the chat room, but that Payet free kick Who was that against? Was that against Palace that just defied gravity and defied physics?
There was one against Palace, and there was one against Manchester United in the FA Cup.
It wasn't that. That was the one that was like 35 yards out. This was the one that looped up above the goal and suddenly dipped.
That was against Palace. Yeah, insane.
I still don't know how he did that. And that I didn't even cheer for that goal. I just kept watching the replay, amazed that just happened. And so, if I was going to pick a moment, maybe it's that one, just because I still to this day do not understand how that happened, and it happened for us, which is amazing.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah. For me, it's tough. There are, as we already mentioned, there's so many easy options to go for. The last game of Boleyn is probably going to be everyone's number one, and should be, rightly so. I did like the way Vazte scored and the atmosphere at the Wembley Stadium. But I want to go typical West Ham, and you've already mentioned it. It is Adrian in the cup, taking on the clubs, running, scoring. Do you know why it's typical West Ham? Because the next round we get fucking knocked out.
Absolutely, yes.
What? I literally thought to myself before, I was like, that is a moment in the cup. That is like that. That is somewhere where we can bounce off. This has got to be our year. This has got to be our year. We got to at least get to the final.
Yep.
What happens? We get knocked out. Typical West Ham.
There are a few things that come to my mind. One is very personal. It was right at the beginning of the decade. It's February 2010 when I got to go to the Boleyn and see a match. The only time I've ever seen West Ham play live. It was against Birmingham City. I was under the lights on a weeknight. I think it was like a Tuesday night. And as I've said before, my buddy Ken and I went over, and it was a fantastic experience. Went out for drinks at the Boleyn beforehand, and walked to the ground of the Poland pub. And walked to the ground, and what can I say? Diamante hit a free kick right before halftime. Guy we should have hung on to, by the way. And then Carlton scored in the second half. It was fantastic. It snowed a little. It was just perfect. It was just perfect night. But that's just because I was there. I think the last game at the Boleyn, the thing I remember best about it is that everybody was upset that it was on a weeknight because the match was moved because Manchester United were in a European competition, I think, and they had a conflict. And so everybody was saying, well, it's not even going to be on a Saturday at 3 or Saturday, it's not going to be at a proper time. But it just added to the drama to me that it was under the lights, that it was nationally televised in the UK. It was globally televised everywhere. And again, the way it played out was magical. It really was. Let's face it. It was magical. But my number one choice is still the playoff final. And it's because I think it's my favorite. I've only been supporting West Ham for maybe like 15 years, something like that. I'm not a lifer like you guys, It was the only trophy we've ever won. I know it's a third place trophy, but it's big, huge trophy. And I think just the whole, watching it with a friend, watching it with Ken, watching it up at his place, I felt, really part of something at West Ham kind of for the first time. And, the drama of it, too, the way the match played out. Paul Ince's kid scores against us to equalize, and you're thinking, well, of course that happened. Now they're going to go win on penalties. But, Carlton making the run, Vazte with a shot that he almost put 30 rows up. You know what I mean? If you'd been standing 2 feet further back, you'd have put it into the upper deck. The way the whole thing played out, it's still my favorite moment of the decade. And it was, of course, right at the beginning of the decade, basically. But, that's the one that stands out for me. But I think most people would say last game at the Boleyn, and I couldn't disagree with that. I wouldn't argue with that.
Nah, it's good to know that your decade was disappointing after that moment, Lee.
Well, I'll tell you a few other things, all right, that I've thought about. I'm with you, Ray. The Adrian thing is really unforgettable. I was watching that on my computer because that was another, weeknight game. And just when he dropped the gloves, man, that was a great, great moment. The Ravel Morrison Spurs game when we went to White Hart Lane, won 3-0, and Allardyce played the 4-6-0 with no strikers. And then Ravel's third goal was like that Maradona style, like slaloming run. Amazing, There were a couple of League Cup matches against Spurs where we went down and then we came back. I think one of them was 6 years ago today, if I'm not mistaken. I saw it on Twitter. We went down 1-0 and came back, and Maiga, of all people, scored the match winner. And then I think there was a couple of years ago when we were down 2-0 and we won 3-2 in a League Cup match. And as you said, Ray, it's a typical West Ham because obviously next round we get knocked out.
Yeah,
There's never any doubt about that. So yeah, there've been some good moments, but yeah, it's pretty much all been downhill since 2012, in a way, sort of. So one other question that we had from Instagram, which I guess we should get to, is of a sartorial nature, which I love because I love West Ham shirts and West Ham things. So let's throw this out there. So you have, this is, kind of what has become the classic West Ham badge, even though it's only about 20-something years old. And of course we have the new one, which I don't have any examples of it sitting around me right now, but you do, Ray, in the background. So when we redesign our badge, which I guess we will eventually, what do you think it should look like? Do you go back to the castle? Do you use the hammers? What are your thoughts on? Give us your creative inspiration on what you think, what you'd like to see from us.
Oh, that's a tough one.
You got to think about it a little bit.
Me personally, I think our badge looks too gimmicky and too. I quite like very much the raw kind of look. So when we did our Thames Ironwork kit with the badge on it, with the British badge,
yeah,
I quite liked it. But if the badge was a bit more dark and a bit more rustic, I think I would have preferred that one. As for, I do love my my little board over there. That's quite sick. Yeah. Maybe something like that with some lightnings in it or something like that. Something a bit funky. But I do think our badge at the moment looks a bit boring and bare, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know they're going for some simplicity, but you know what? I'll tell you what I don't like is, I tell you what I liked about this badge was this down here. It really brought out the name of the club. You know what I mean? And it was very distinctive to me. The shape is distinctive. I feel as though this new thing is just like a shield. And I know we used something similar in the 60s, in a sort of classic era for the club, but I don't know. I've never really given up on the castle either. So I don't know. What do you think, John? You got any? You have the designer's eye for the badge?
Yeah, love the castle. There was a generation of Generation X people that got fucked over with their tattoos once they switched over.
Yeah,
got rid of it.
Him is one of them, by the way. He's got a huge sleeve tattoo of this badge. So yeah,
really.
So I'll tell you an anecdote. Actually, I've got an uncle who's an Arsenal supporter who won't say his name, but he had been behind bars maybe a couple of years and got a tattoo of the Arsenal badge way back in the day. And if you remember, they changed their badge, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Back in the, yeah. Something like
so that. When they changed their badge, they actually turned the gun around.
True, they did.
Which finally made his tattoo actually the right way around. The gun was facing the wrong way for about 20 years.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic.
So luckily they didn't switch our hammers upside down, so we don't have to worry about that. But
I haven't gone that far yet.
I'm a bit of a minimalist, to be honest. I like just the crossed hammers. If we could take, I don't like, and I'm looking right behind you, Ray. It says West Ham United.
I like that.
United is smaller than West Ham. That bothers me. It says London on the bottom. That bothers me. If I get rid of the crest, just keep the hammers and go with like an old school. Do you remember how Leeds used to have like LUFC under their thing? We could just have WHUFC underneath two hammers, and I'd be happy with that.
I'd like the badge better if they put East on top of London.
I'd be okay with East. Yeah, it doesn't need to be the whole of London.
If we just said East London, I realize that we're not really in East London anymore, but whatever. That's but it's not bad the way it is. It's not bad. It's okay. It's just not. I don't know. I think what I don't like is the actual shield shape of it, which just seems very generic to me. But
well, that was taken from the hull of a ship from the Thames Ironworks. If you believe the marketing campaign that was put around that. So
I work in marketing. I never believe marketing campaigns.
that was the convenient story that was attached to that campaign.
Say, as a marketing professional, let me just say that I never believe marketing campaigns because I create those things, and it's it's not very believable. Let's spend the last few minutes on.
What's your favorite shirt, by the way?
My favorite.
Yeah.
This is one of. That's why I wore this tonight. This is one of them. This is the away shirt from. I don't know when it was from. Actually, 5-6 years ago. I got Carlton on the back, so it's got to be pretty old. It's got the pinstripes, which are kind of hard to see on camera, probably, but it's a lot like the 1981 away shirt, the League Cup final away shirt, if you remember that one.
Yeah.
I like this one a lot. I like the first away shirt that we had at the Olympic Stadium, which was just the plain white. I like white shirts for whatever reason. They're hard to keep clean. But I think the one I like the best is, which I don't have, is like 82, 83 thereabouts with like the claret front, the blue sleeves. It's an Adidas shirt. If I could find a picture of it without crashing this old laptop, I would do it. But I think that's the West Ham shirt I've seen over the years that I like the best.
I've taken over the system, and it's
there
this
you go.
one.
He's hijacked the whole thing.
Look at that beaut.
That is, I'm not going to say that's one of my favorites.
That was my first shirt ever.
Really?
I'll remove it from the stream, but just I don't want your eyes to be burnt with the glory of it.
Well, the sponsor logo is red, which is
I was going to bring out the same shirt because that was my first ever shirt that I bought. And that's my favorite shirt. And it was literally so big. It's like when you first buy a suit and it's like down here. It's meant to be up here. It was literally down there and I'm like covered in it. It was amazing.
Well, that's where they were. Like in the early mid 90s, there were these big blousy, and now they're sort of those Kappa shirts are like firm, tight fitting. I can't wear those things. But which fortunately
it's more tight on me because of my fat gut. But
that's what I'm saying is I can't. When I had an Italian rugby shirt for a while, that was one of those Kappa shirts, and I used to wear underneath my kit because you can't wear it out because it's like skin tight. But yeah, so fortunately, those. But yeah, these in the '90s they were like these big blousy sort of free flowing shirts. But now we've lost John completely. It's like John is pieced out.
Yeah, he's like, don't like your shirt. Bye.
But Hugo's got a good point here. Those '60s shirts, the away shirt, the blue with the claret stripes, gorgeous, Bobby Moore era, and then the
really do like our new away kit. To be fair,
I love our new away kit, absolutely. Yeah. And it's probably the one I'll end up buying this season. I always buy them at the end of the season when they go on sale. But yeah, I like the new away kit.
Yeah, it's really nice. I've got a copy. I've got it, and it's the only thing I don't. There's only one thing I don't like of it. It's because I'm always messy.
Yeah,
I always spill stuff down it. So it starts off beautifully white. A month later, tea stain it.
I use a lot of spray and wash or Colgate bleach for colors or whatever it is on this Colgate. That's not right. Clorox bleach for colors on this shirt and on my white shirts because I end up with like spaghetti sauce, barbecue sauce and stuff on them. I have this all the time. Beer, steak, whatever. So, but I love white shirts for some reason.
I always get the messiest food when I'm wearing a white top as well. It's like chicken wings.
Well, that goes without saying that you're going to get wings. You're going to get something that splatters. All right, let's. If you guys don't mind, let's do one more question before we go.
Yeah, sure.
Probably should give this more time than we're going to give it, but let's just throw it out there. This came from Instagram as well, and I'm going to leave it more to you than to me because I don't have the same background you have with the club. So, to you, who is Mr. West Ham? Is it Billy Bonds or is it Bobby Moore, or is it somebody else?
Who's starting?
Go on, John. You go first.
I know we're all too young to remember those guys.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I didn't grow up in the.
I was going to say that. The only thing I remember is Billy Bonds being the manager for Ben.
Yeah.
So for me, I was more of the Harry Redknapp era, really. But I'd probably say Bobby Moore just because of what he represented on and off the pitch. I do know. I don't know if this is true. But my granddad and my great uncle used to play over the park with him when they were kids and younger.
Wow.
So apparently he was a really standout guy and he was really, really nice. So I can only hear what they used to tell me. Right. And they used to say that Bobby Moore was a gentleman, always really nice. Even when he was a kid, he didn't have any arrogance. I think they knew he was going to be a player that was going to be amazing. I do feel sad for Billy Bonds and the way it all ended and how it's taken so long for him to get back with the club. And it does worry me, but I would love to see him and Harry Redknapp just sit down, have like, I don't know if you've seen it, the Vieira and Keane show.
No.
Where they just sat down and had a chat and just talked about all things. Obviously, they'll have to have a chat off screen. I don't think Billy Bonds would actually do it because he's a bit proud. But it'd be nice to sit down and just hear both sides of the stories and how they used to be when they worked together, when they played and all that kind of stuff. It'd be a great show for the network.
Yeah, especially when Harry comes back as our manager after he sacked Pellegrini, right?
And like, I wouldn't want them to they're not getting younger. So do they want to pass away with them regrets and not being able to just sit down and just chat it out?
Harry had something in one of his autobiographies about that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's, I don't remember the title of it, but he had like a whole few pages or a chapter on that relationship. I don't really recall exactly what it was, but if you wanted to look into it more, that's right after he was retiring with football, kind of. He had a chapter on that and was talking about, if I can remember it correctly, just it was typical Harry kind of putting it on Bonds a bit more to.
Yeah, I think Harry's a great storyteller, isn't he? There's certain things that he does say that he bends the truth and it makes it a bit more exciting. Like when he brought the guy off on who's a fan onto the pitch to take Chapman's place. Like I remember seeing a story, and it's a bit like what he's saying, but he drama is it up to make it a better story than what it is. Yeah, everyone does that, I guess.
He's a tremendous storyteller. He's a great media personality, a great storyteller.
Yeah. And Bonds is the opposite of that. I mean, he doesn't want the spotlight, like he's a gentleman, he's very private. So I don't think you'll ever really get his side of the story.
My impression is, in doing the show for almost a year now and just talking to people, talking to fans over the years, I think if you had to choose between Billy Bonds and Bobby Moore, I think most people would choose Billy Bonds. One, he's more recent, and that helps because Bobby Moore, he was gone by the mid-'70s, and that's a long time ago. I'm 45 years old, and I, would not be old enough to remember seeing Bobby Moore play for West Ham. So you gotta be a boomer almost, really, to remember that, and that's a long time ago. But I think Billy Bonds, to me, he sort of exemplified West Ham in the sense that he was kind of underappreciated everywhere else, right? He got one England call up. He never played, so I don't think he ever got a cap for him. I think he got called up one time. And so it was, he was like a working class kind of guy, whereas Bobby Moore was a fantastic player, obviously, but he was renowned worldwide. everybody loved him. Peles is the best player best defender ever played against. And I'm not taking anything away from Bobby Moore. I'm just saying I think if you want to look for somebody who recognizes West Ham, it's more Billy Bonds and Bobby Moore, the underappreciated, quiet sort of workhorse, as opposed to somebody who became a global star, even though he deserved to become a global star. Where do you guys? I'm curious too. I want to throw this out before we go. So, I mean, where does Mark Noble fit in now? So, does he need a trophy? Does he need an FA Cup before he can get a Mark Noble stand at the Olympic Stadium, or is he on the Mount Rushmore of West Ham legends, or is he sort of in a second tier with, I don't know, like Alvin Martin or somebody who's great, not quite at the Bonds Moore type level?
Yeah, he's not top tier. And that's not anything against him. It's just probably he's not achieved anything with West Ham of significance. Like he's not won an FA Cup, or he's not got into European Championships or anything like that. And he's not been amazing throughout the whole time, but he has a great legacy where you would put people like Sir Geoff Hurst, Bobby Moore in that top tier. Billy Bonds played out his skins. Where for me, Noble has been a bit hot and cold throughout his legacy. I feel like he's a great player and he's definitely just below the Mount Rushmore, but he's just not on the Mount Rushmore for me. You know what I mean?
Maybe not good enough. I mean,
Let me answer this by I didn't get to answer your last question, which was who's Mr. West Ham. No, that's all right. I'm not mad about it, Lee.
You're a better host than I am. That's the thing.
But let me answer that one first, and that will kind of play into my second answer, who is Mr. West Ham? And I'll go against the grain a little bit. And let me say John Lyall is Mr. West Ham, because nobody ever really mentions a manager, right? So absolutely. What we had in John Lyall was somebody who was innovative, who looked abroad, saw what they were doing. I believe he actually looked into Hungary and other places, other teams that we played from around the continent, was doing things that were not being done in England. And we haven't had anybody like that since. Now, the world's got a lot smaller, so I can understand that, right? I mean, it's much easier to get around. Stuff's on the internet. Coaching techniques are shared a lot easier. But we haven't had an innovative coach since John Lyall that was actually, going out there and doing something revolutionary in the game. So for me, he's Mr. West Ham. And Mark Noble's deficit is at a point because we've never had a manager that will play and put Brookings around him. We'll put Devonshire's around him.
We'll put another guy who's on the Mount Rushmore is Trevor Brooking, yeah.
Right. We'll put those kind of players that were around Bonds to allow him to succeed. Nobles hasn't had that help at all. I mean, we had Tevez, we had Mascherano for half a season, but nobody of real notoriety or note that will let Mark Noble excel. Payet, sure, he was there. Mark Noble,
one season, for one season.
One season.
Yeah. He plays the level of the players around him. Mark Noble, he's a fantastic player with great vision, an incredible range of passing, which is really not surpassed in the game and is often overlooked. He's slow. He is slow, but he's slower feet and quicker mind. So I'm not saying he's the best player on the planet. I think I'd be out of control trying to say something like that. But if you surrounded Mark Noble with the right players, he would have been successful, much more so than he has at West Ham. And I think part of that's on the owners, part of that's on the manager, part of that is that the game has moved on, and you got to splash. You've got to have a real billionaire, as we were talking about earlier, to really bring in those kinds of players. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on that. I love Nobes. I wish for him as much as myself that we could get at least an FA Cup or something under his belt. I think that would be the cherry on top for him. He's had a fantastic West Ham career, again, on and off the pitch. Great ambassador for the club. He's a one-club man. You don't see that anymore. So I take nothing away from him.
Just to jump on your point, John, I thought one of the best seasons that Noble had was when Song was playing, or even when he was playing as a sub and when he was coming on, because Noble had to step up his game to make sure that Song didn't replace him. And I thought that was that says a lot. A player excels. It's the same with Beckham and that. When they turned around and said that Sir Alex Ferguson used to bring in these players, and thought, why are you bringing him in? I'm brilliant. Why are you not? Why are you trying to replace me? And it made them step up the game. And that's what I felt Noble did that season when Alex Song come in and he just stepped up that another level for me. And then as soon as Song went, it's all like he sort of dropped back down again because he didn't have anything to push him or to challenge him. And as someone said about Ron Greenwood, he was a great tactician. Didn't he come up with the counter attack as well? back in the day. That was
I
his,
think he did.
yeah.
Ron Greenwood, I interviewed Chuck Core on the show some months ago. Chuck wrote the definitive history of West Ham back in the 80s. I think it was published in '86. He knew all these guys. He knew Ron Greenwood, he knew John Lyle. He knew him really well. I mean, he was like close friends with him. And he just could not speak highly enough of John Lyle. And I think, John, your point about him being Mr. West Ham is very strong. And Greenwood as well, really the two of them together, because they managed together and, Lyle played for Greenwood and they were managed under him. But, it's funny because John Lyle, we went down under John Lyle, right, in the late 70s, down for a couple of seasons. Several, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Came back up in '81. He had long spells without victories. There were growing pains when he took over as full-time manager. But it eventually led to the FA Cup in 1980 when we were still in the second division. I say we, West Ham, we're still in the second division. And of course, it led to some fantastic moments in the mid 80s, and including 1986, which is the best season the club has ever had. So, it says a lot for having some patience with a manager. I think the reason you can't do that now is because if you go down, you lose all your Premier League TV money. You lose all your players.
Yeah, it's a different game.
It's a different game. You can't have patience. You can't just go down and say, well, we'll be fine. We'll come back up. There'll never be another Nottingham Forest that'll come up from a division below, win the championship, and then win 2 consecutive European Cups. It's never going to happen again. It just doesn't work that way anymore. But John Lyle, the family that ran West Ham at the time, the Cerns and whoever they were, they let him see it through, and it ended up being a good investment. It just would never happen now. But unless Declan Rice spends his career with us, which frankly doesn't seem very likely, but unless he does, I don't think we'll ever see another Mark Noble. I don't think we'll ever see another one like him. Wasn't he born in Canning Town? I mean, he's from East London, right? Yeah. I mean, he's a native, That's never going to happen again. I just don't see that ever happening again.
Right. I'm so happy you brought up Alex Song. How bad could we do with somebody like him right
Massively.
now?
Massively.
He was one of those few players where he came into the team and you just went, oh, that's what a next level player looks like.
Yeah.
That's what somebody who plays for Inter Milan or Man United looks like. He was, great player.
Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah.
He came from Barcelona, didn't he? Wasn't he in the Barcelona system or whatever you call it? I think he was.
Yeah, he was playing for Barcelona before he joined us, but I believe his son turned around and said, "Why are you not playing every week, Dad?" And he was like, "Well, because I'm in Barcelona." So he had to go join another team like West Ham so he could play every week. And to be fair, he didn't play every week. Noble stepped up his level and kept him out of the system as much. So another player that doesn't get enough recognition is Vic Watson, our top goal scorer of all time.
With hundreds of goals. Yeah. I mean, by far top goal scorer. Not even close.
326.
Yeah.
Jeff Hurst, 252. And
Andy Carroll, how many?
2.
Only 2 that I can remember.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's not actually on it. Andy Carroll, how many goals he scored?
That's another question I was going to ask you guys. Nobody ever talks about Trevor Brooking as Mr. West Ham. Why not? Well, shouldn't he be in the conversation? Or
definitely. Trevor Brooking,
Bonds and Moore, and even Alan Devonshire. Great players, obviously. But I feel as though Trevor Brooking, it's like he scored the winning goal last time we won the FA Cup 40 years ago. But I never hear his name sort of thrown into that group.
Can I just point out, it was 39 years ago because I'm not 40 yet.
Yeah, but by the time there's another FA Cup final, it's going to be 40. I mean, so what do you guys who grew up around West Ham? What's the take on Sir Trev? I mean, I would think that he had a stand named after him, right? So, but yeah, I never.
I do remember him doing a lot when he retired. He was doing a lot more for the FA and the England team, but he was always around the ground. And yeah, you're probably right. He probably doesn't get. I think he does with the West Ham fans, and Upton Park, he was getting a lot of love and getting a lot of respect. And I would put Sir Trevor Brooking up on that Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I think there's no question about that. He's quite literally on it anyway. I mean, with the stand and so forth. But I always wonder why the debate comes down to Tim's chiding me for not watching. No, I have seen people say Sir Trump, but I'm wondering why he never gets thrown into like the Bonds or Moore sort of question.
I love him. Honestly, I love him. He's I didn't get to watch him as a player. I'm much younger than Ray, but
oh wow,
I did get to watch him twice as a manager, and I think he has the best winning record of any West Ham manager ever. So he was caretaker manager twice, always stepped up when asked upon. Again, another ambassador for the club at the national level as well, doing everything that he does with the England setup. He's a fellow you could always count on in a time of need as a West Ham. I wish he had a bit of a longer run as manager, to be honest, because he was getting results, but wasn't to be.
My image of him, because I'm older than you all, but I obviously didn't start supporting West Ham at the same time you did. So I obviously don't have any experience watching Trevor Brooking other than on YouTube. But the image of him during the Bubbles riot in the Burnley match last season, or maybe that was 2 years ago, whenever that was. I'm losing my memory. Just sort of sitting, he was such a gentleman about it. And just sort of sitting there, he looked disappointed, but also sort of accepting in a weird way. I don't know. I admired his reaction. I'm not sure what else to say. He just seemed very sanguine about the whole thing. And he strikes me as that kind of person. He strikes me as somebody who's very much in control, and a true gentleman. And that's and you don't see that much with players anymore. There's a lot of prima donnas. Is all I'm saying.
Well, if Jack does watch this show, which he probably does because he watches most of them apparently, get rid of Karen Brady, put Sir Trevor Brooking in. That will win the fans over. 100%.
That's true. If he wants to win the fans over, that would not be a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
What better person for director of football? Somebody to safeguard the culture, the history, and the meaning and style of play that West Ham try and play traditionally over the years, and somebody like that.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know if he'd be in this sort of somebody to insist that we actually try to win a cup competition, right? Put out a full starting 11. Even for the League Cup, we need it. We need a trophy. We need a trophy. And I often think that foreign managers don't always respect the cups the way an English or a British manager would. Could be wrong about that. I know a lot of foreign managers have won them. I realize that. But I think they don't always have the respect for what the FA Cup means to the English fans. The players, I don't think care.
You put that down silently. I see it all as English or not English, short-termism, because, like you said, the game's changed. People managers don't get time anymore, regardless of where they're from. I think that's part of it. Is just they're always looking at the league will always trump everything else, especially teams that are in a dogfight or in a relegation fight.
Well, that's where the money is, right? If you want to look at what truly is, to me, if you want to look at what is in sports in general and football in particular, it's the vast quantity of money involved, not just what the players get paid. That's what the market will bear. It's the TV money, and it's the fact that, as we talked about, these days, if you go down, it's an absolute catastrophe financially for the club. Look at all the examples. Stoke are about to have a big sell-off because they're struggling financially. If you look at, I don't know, Coventry were in the top flight for like 35 years, and they've sunk down. I don't know where they are now. I don't know if they're the Championship or League One. I don't remember. You can go Portsmouth and Sunderland and Ipswich, and some stayed up for a long time, some stayed up for a short time, but they've all gone down and they failed to come back up. Tim brought up Forest. Nottingham Forest, went down 15 years ago. Never really come close to coming back up. Even Millwall, if you want to throw them out there. So you can't have that thing where you go down Blackburn, Bolton, all of them in there. You can't have the thing where you go down and then you struggle to get back up, and the fans don't come, and the TV money doesn't come in. It's the money's too big. That's why there has to be like the short-term mentality instead of give a manager 5 or 6 years. If he goes down, he'll bring us back up. You can't think that way. It's too risky.
Is it going to get worse when they decide they're going to do the Super League and then just do a Netflix style all online?
I would love for them to do the Super League. That'd be fine with me. Let them go. I don't care. You know, I don't know. In a way, yeah. Is it great when we beat Manchester United or Liverpool or or Arsenal? Yeah, it's great. But I would also. I'll just watch West Ham every week, no matter who we play. But is it going to get worse? Yeah. The more money that comes in, the worse things get, right? I mean, It seems that way. You had the Premier League, and then you had the massive TV money, and then the vast sort of foreign influence of, you remember when Manchester United skipped the FA Cup to play in the World Club FIFA Cup, whatever it is, World Club Cup that Liverpool are in now, since that's why we're not playing them on Saturday. They skipped the FA Cup. They just pulled out because they wanted to sell shirts in Brazil and Thailand and places like that. They want to be on TV, and now you get the massive.
That's why Liverpool paid their youth team the other night.
It's a complete piss take. It's an absolute piss take, and it suits nobody but the people, counting the pounds and counting the dollars behind the scenes. Doesn't suit the supporters. I doubt there's a single Liverpool supporter that's happy with what happened there. Of
course not, because they want to win trophies too, and that's a trophy they could win. I mean, I know they have bigger sites. I know they're the defending Champions League holders and all that, but even so, you want to see your team compete and win. I hate this notion of it's just like what happened to us against Oxford, where we put out half a side, and then the regular players who were out there looked disinterested. If you're going to wear the West Ham shirt, you should really play for it and try to win. And if you're going to manage West Ham, you should try to win every match we're in. And that's how I. But as you said, you can't sacrifice the league. You can't sacrifice your TV money. You can't sacrifice your merchandising and everything else. If you think that a cup run is going to
go to American Hammer's shop to buy our merchandise.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No, don't buy merchandise from the club. No, buy it from us.
This is what happens, Ray. See, we're pushing people. We've got too much going on. They bring the B squad to the show tonight, and we're still pushing the merch.
That's right. Yeah. I looked at that Liverpool starting 11 because I was curious when I saw they were down 2-0. I think when I first saw the score, and I looked at it, I've never heard of a single one of the players. Never heard of any of them. I don't really follow Liverpool, obviously, but not even a name that I could recognize. It's just of course, the more money that gets into the game, the more it ruins it. On the other hand, the only reason we get to watch, John, here in the U.S. is because the game has gone global, right? I couldn't watch a live Premier League match 20 years ago. I didn't even know what it was. Well, I knew what it was, but I didn't know anything about it. Couldn't see it live. So it's catch-22. I love the fact that I can stream every single game live at any time. I can get all the replays. Oh yeah.
And I will still complain when the Premier League decides to do one game a year in America, like the NFL does in London. But it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's coming. It's only a matter of time.
It's going to happen, and it'll be a smart investment. I'm sorry, but it will. It will. I mean, it'll draw people. These Premier League morning things at the NBC Sports that they do with the Premier League, where they go to different cities, they draw huge crowds. And those are controlled crowds. I mean, you have to actually go wait in line to get in or have a ticket to get in. It's not. So what I'm saying is, people go through a hassle to get in.
Yep. And it won't just be here. It'll be the Middle East. It'll be China. All over. Everybody's thirsty for it. Everybody loves the Premier League, and you know what? That's a great thing. It is a great thing. That brings, with the money, it brings a lot of very good footballers to England. Makes the league more exciting. Brings talent that we otherwise wouldn't have seen.
Yep.
But you got to take the rough with the smooth, and the rough is going to be. It's not the game it was. It's not a working class game anymore, and it's certainly not one where the dollar signs don't matter.
The working class fans can't afford it. You're never going to see the muddy pitch again with guys sliding around in a penalty area that's a total quagmire. You're never going to see the images of the 70s. That's not going to happen anymore. Players won't play in those conditions. But anyway, we're kind of rambling now, and it is 22 minutes after 10, which makes it I don't know, like Saturday afternoon in Australia or something, where Neil is. I have no idea. Ray is, as usual, up at like 4 a.m, or
Yeah.
is it 3:30?
After-
Was it 3:30 there?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3:30. You're just fresh as a daisy too. That's what's so crazy. I mean, you like the old hair metal song, "Up All Night, Sleep All Day," right?
Yeah. I wish at the moment it's too busy this time of year in the bar.
Is it?
Yeah. It's Christmas time, so we get those people. Loads of tourists come in, get drunk, have a fight, go home. It's these people that come out once a night, once a year. They come out, start trouble, then go home, get arrested, go home. Something to talk about throughout January.
That's a long tradition in England, though, right? That's a great English tradition. We don't do that here in America, of course. we don't.
Right? There was this young student girl. She's like passed out outside the front of the bar. I haven't even been into my bar because we're more over 25s. And she's like wearing a mini skirt, a crop top. I'm like, it's fucking freezing out here. What are you doing? You pissed. Right there.
It's kind of a sad spectacle, but it's true. We don't have bar fights because we just have shootings and stabbings. We just go straight to the weapons. That's how, you know what I mean? Especially in Lowell. Tim, if it's Tim still on, he'll know what I'm talking about. You immediately go to, nobody fights. You don't fight. You get right to that. Yeah. Anyway, so I have to make the boys' lunches for tomorrow. We've been on for almost an hour and a half, but Ray in the middle of the night and John and Philly. Thanks for being with us. This is a lot of fun. Really appreciate it. We will hopefully all talk to each other again soon. And Neil says it's 1:52 p.m. in Australia, and I think it's like 112 degrees Fahrenheit or something, which I would take right now.
Yeah, so
I was just outside sledding in the backyard with the boys before I got on tonight, so I would I would take 112 degrees, melt it all away. Let me see now. This is the 18th of December. I cannot do the show on Sunday night as usual because my wife and I are going to a concert of some sort that I forgot about. Will we do another show this decade? I think so. So I don't have to wish a happy decade to everybody yet. Right, because we'll have the Boxing Day match and all that. Okay. All right. Anyway, I don't have any sense of time at all, obviously. But John, and everybody in the chat room, Gabe, Wally, all our regulars, Tebow, Neil, John Callender, obviously Tim, who's always checking up on me, making sure I'm not screwing up. Tim, who's down in Florida right now on vacation, being very sensible. Anyway, John says Philly sucks.
Yeah, thanks, John.
We'll sign off on that. Guys, I appreciate being here. We'll talk to you again soon. Come on, you on.
See you later.